How many watts does your inverter use when idle? Take a look. You're never going to believe this, but this battery is having problems. It's not good.
So for our last video of 2024, we've decided that we're going to do a Q&A, and we've had some really good questions in, so let's get started.
So, Jerusalem Cuckoo's Cookbook.
That was so northern.
It sounds northern. Cookbook. Whenever you say cookbook together, say cookbook. Would you please consider doing an open day on a weekend so we can all come visit, meet you guys and ask questions, look around your amazing place, etc. Please. I think the answer to that would be probably no. And for me, it's because everything looks a mess. And it's another thing. You've got to find the time to tidy everything up, make things safe. And there's loads of things that aren't safe. And we get some nutcases as well, don't we? But they would be the ones that turn up. It wouldn't be the nice ones that turn up.
I'm sure some of the people that turned up would be really nice.
Some of them would, but we get that. There was one that was quite stalkery. On every post we put out, he'd always mention Pylon Tech batteries.
Yeah.
Do you remember? There was
and then
one,
we blocked him.
We had to block him because he was just getting more and more agitated. You thought he is actually crazy, and then you tell them where you live, and that would be the big thing, isn't it? You let people know where you are, and then you have these people just stalking you.
I think we're just really private. We're really private, which sounds ridiculous when you put everything all over YouTube, but when it comes to actually having people into our house and into our home, and we don't have many people do that, so we keep ourselves very much to ourselves. And so that would be a really big step for us. That would be a huge step. I know some people have people at their house all the time, and we just don't.
No.
So we're very private when it comes to real life. And there's some things it's just not something we'd do yet at the moment. Yeah. Maybe one day. Never say never.
I wouldn't rule it out, but I wouldn't. It's knowing who's going to be there, and obviously you give yourself away where you are, what you've got. But if there's something you want to know about, you can always ask us, and then we could show you around. Maybe do some sort of a tour.
It's hard to explain, isn't it? That because when you share everything on YouTube, and then don't feel, and then want to maintain your privacy, that's really hard to explain. But what we can only go with how we feel, and we just go with our gut on things. It's the same as, obviously we have our children on YouTube as well. There are people who don't do that, but it's doing what you feel comfortable with doing at the time. And at the moment, we're happy to share our lives, and I think we share quite a lot, but not necessarily having people here in real life yet. We'll see.
And this sort of life lends itself to people that want to sort of get out of the system, but in turn people that want to get out of the system are people that are crazy. There are some crazy people, aren't there? You know, we get some people, but it's true, isn't it?
There are some crazy people. Yeah. Are we crazy?
Well, I don't think so. I don't like start having a go at someone's children on.
Oh, that's true. That's the thing that
on you know, I don't sort of go on to social media and start slagging off someone's kids like we've had on ours before.
Yeah.
And you know, so you get some proper weird, angry people, and you know that's.
Don't really want to invite them to an open day.
No, that's right. Well, we did have one, didn't we, about the Pylon Tech batteries that just
and we had another one who was
on.
And we had one who was really awful about the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wouldn't think it, would you? You wouldn't think that someone would go in on kids, but there you go. There you go. I think we deleted those comments, so don't go looking for them. That was a long time ago, but still.
Yeah. Are you happy with that powered wheelbarrow? If so, what make, model is it? Did you make any progress with the wood gasifier generator? Thanks.
Oh, that's two separate questions there.
These videos and great Christmas time. Okay. So I like the wheelbarrow. It's a Bell powered wheelbarrow. It's got really good things about it, but again, it's a modern day thing where it could have been built a lot better, basically. It's got no undercoat paint on it, so once your little bit of orange paint comes off, you're back to bare metal and then quickly rust. It's got Honda engine, which is really good usually, but apparently the red Honda engines are better than the black ones, so that's a bit cheaper. Sometimes if it's really damp, it has a job to start. And if you're not physically fit, I know I make it look very easy because but just if you're not, you have to basically lift it around to turn corners. It's got no individual system where you can spin the left wheels or spin the right wheels. It basically just, it'll go forward and backwards, and you have to do all the turning. So if you've got a load on, sometimes it balances it more and sometimes it's less. Obviously if you're going uphill, it's a right pain because the load is back on the barrow where you've got to lift it from. So
it does help you move heavier stuff.
Yeah.
But it is still a physical job to use it.
Yeah.
But you use it for loads of things.
Loads of things. And it holds, I think, 2 or 3 times more than a normal wheelbarrow as well.
And I mean, you use it to get the trailer out. You use it to manoeuvre heavier things around, the chipper. And
the chicken coop and things like that. So it is a really good bit of kit, but it could have been made better. And it's a shame because I think it was 2,800 quid and I thought it was going to be probably better than it actually is. But the implements are good on it. So it's got like a normal flat platform, so if you're moving bags of cement and things like that, it's got the big bucket with it, so you can put brick rubble and sand and cement in it, or mix stuff up in it. Yeah, and the kids. And brilliant for wheelbarrowing wood chip around the land and things like that. And it's also got a little tow bar thing that has to come off, so you have to take the wheelbarrow part off to put the tow bar bit on, which is a bit of a pain. I wish they'd have made it so that you could have the wheelbarrow part on and tow, because then you could perhaps chip into the barrow part, which you can't do. So if you're towing a chipper, if you're towing something, you can't actually use that bit as well. And for my work, it's a little bit of a nuisance because I'd like to perhaps I'm taking a tree down, someone's having the chip, but they don't want the logs. A lot of schools are like that. You can put the logs in the barrow part and pull the chipper along, but you can't take the barrow part. So you have to take the tow ball off the barrow to put the barrow part back on it, and it's a bit of a pain. So, but it is what it is, and it does help. So yeah.
Gasifier.
Oh, the gasifier, it's something I'd really like to do if I had more time, and I spent £700 on it so far on materials. And I've got a book. In fact, I'll give people the link to the book, because if people want to go ahead and buy the book and have a go, be warned, it is far more expensive to do than the book says it is. And this is what I found. I started buying parts, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is going to take a lot more time and a lot more money than I anticipated. And I think the book said $1,500 to $2,000 if I'm right. And well, you can triple that easily. And I know it's an American thing, and obviously we in this country haven't got the buying power that perhaps America has, and the pound's not good or whatever's going on, but it would be triple that. I think you'd be looking at $3,000 easily, perhaps more. And then you've got to put that against your time that you're spending on it and fuel that you'd perhaps put in your generator anyway. And it's for 3 months of the year, so I avoided getting something like a wind turbine because of the expense of a turbine. And obviously a wind turbine doesn't always generate electricity. If it's still like today, it's grey and very still, nothing's doing brilliantly. So, but a gasifier you could light up whenever, because you've got plenty of wood around, and it might be something I do later on, get round to doing it. But we got onto food. What happened was I was planning to get on and start doing it, and it's one of those jobs that is very finicky. If you don't start and carry on, you will never get round to finishing it. It was one of those projects that will just, you'll start and then you won't get round to do it, and it will just be frustrating, and you've got to try and track where you were with
and you'll
it.
lose all the bits.
And there's complicated things that, because when it works with the generator, you've got to obviously get the fuel to air mix right, so the right amount of gas to air mix, and there's things that you can buy from America that do that automatically for you. but you've got to have the right generator, and you know the main purpose is it's got to hook up to the Victron stuff so that it charges the batteries. And that is another little minefield with that, because you've got to have the right regulator on it, voltage regulator on it, so that it works through that. Because I know when we use our generator now, it's got something called a floating, gets very complicated, a floating neutral. So our boiler won't work because it's got a feed through on the inverter where you know when the generator's running, because the inverter will run our boiler really easily, whereas if you put the generator on, it does a feed through and the electrode in the boiler won't ignite, so you can't get your boiler to work because of this floating neutral system. If you don't get things right with it, it won't work your machinery. And you've also got to have, obviously, for sensitive stuff, so you have to buy perhaps a pure sine wave generator, which is not great because you want something rough and ready to run gas through. You don't want something as clean as that. So it can be done, but it's a lot of thinking about, and it's a lot of time and money to get it right. And time and money is something we struggle with, especially since we're living in a mobile home, and we could really do something else, which will lead us on to another question.
I think the thing was that we had a massive shift in priorities this year.
Yeah.
This year we've had a really big journey in terms of food and understanding what is being put into the food that we buy, and making sure that we stop buying that food. So a huge amount of our effort has gone into that, into growing our own food, trying to store more food, and also just spending time working out where we're going to buy the rest of it. So that's taken up a lot of energy and money this year, and that meant that the gasifier just wasn't a priority. What's the point of having a gasifier if what you're eating is making you unwell? Health is number one.
Yeah.
So that had to come first. But yeah, so different priorities this year, and it just didn't happen. Another thing to... It's in the pipeline sometime, but there's no hurry on it.
I think the thing we're finding is we're not going to be able to do everything. We can't... You know, some of the questions that have been asked, as you know, you'll sort of get there, you'll get a cow and you'll get pigs and you'll get there. Someone was saying, one of the things I said, you'll get there, and I was like, where is there? Because when we started out, it was to live in a woodland off grid and grow a little bit of food, but never farming, never, you know, sort of grow it and do everything, because, you know, we realised back then that is impossible. That's silly. We've got full-time jobs. And then you go, well, perhaps we'll work a bit less here and we'll do more of that. And you're still can't do full-time farming. You know, it's, you know, to grow every animal and vegetable, you have to do it all the time. And then why not, obviously, be a farmer and sell it? I'd rather go to work and earn the money and buy the food rather than have to milk a cow every day and have those commitments to all those things. Obviously, I you know, we toyed the idea of perhaps getting a couple of sheep and fattening them up. But then, do you want to breed sheep? No, there's another avenue. You know, it's just like, well, that's going into proper farming, and we don't want to do that.
That was never the dream, was it?
No.
The dream was never to be farmers. It was just to live off grid in a woodland.
Yeah, and my thing was, you know, forestry. You know, I'm a tree nut first and foremost, not a farmer. And I really don't think I want to go down into big time farming. I like eating nice food. That's what brings me, you know, round to thinking, oh, that'd be good to have some pigs. Imagine the apples that they could eat. You know, we've got all these apples that left over. We could feed them on this, and then we could grow wurzels or whatever they're called. Those strange, you know, we could make the food for the animal, which is part of the system that you'd want to do.
There's so much work.
There's so much work, but you get people say, oh, I'm going to get out of the system and not be reliant on anything. Well, obviously, polytunnel plastic, you know, you can't be completely out of the system. And there's a big push at the moment for this idea that we can live in the community and we'll do it all, and it's just like, nah, you can't, actually. You can't, because you're not, no one in your community is going to be making, you know, iron out of raw, you know, iron ore, or making plastic and stuff for your polytunnel. And there's certain things you need, and if you've got to have such a huge acreage to grow all the food for all the animals and all the things that you're doing. It's just not going to be feasible, really. And I mean, I like the Amish. You know, the Amish don't do everything in-house. They still know that they need money. They still sell their produce, and they go to market, and they get the money for the things that they need to buy. But their way of life is good. They're healthy people, and they're active people, and
they're in touch with the land.
And they're in touch with the land, and they manage to maintain community in one way or another. I'm sure it's not all roses. But
there's stuff to be learned there.
Yeah.
It's interesting way of life.
Classic question, where will you be in 5 years, or at least see your lives in 5 years?
We were talking about this question earlier, weren't we? And we were saying, actually, in order to think about where you're going to be in 5 years' time, it's worth thinking about where you were 5 years ago. Now, 5 years ago, we didn't have... You were partway through building the barn. We had no solar power system. We had no polytunnel. In that 5 years, we've had 2 children. We've put the polytunnel and all of the veg growing stuff in place. We've done the pond and secured our water supply, and we've put in all those extra tanks as well, and the 10,000 litre tank in as well. We have done a huge amount. In fact, a huge amount of our off-grid setup happened in the last 5 years. So whilst 5 years might not sound like a massive amount of time, a huge amount has changed. Our lives have completely changed in the last 5 years. Oh, and we also bought a piece of land in Scotland.
Yeah.
And I've left my job.
Yeah.
It's been a lot has happened. So in answer to the question, we actually have no idea. And we're okay with that. We would love to build a house at some point, but we need the money to do that, so that's what we're working on at the moment. We will be here, we think. Having said that,
the politics is...
politics is a problem at the moment, and we're not going to go too much into that, but we're watching what's happening in America, finding that really interesting, and I have to say there is an appeal there. You look at and the trouble is, these changes, they come and they go, and it's backwards and forwards, and you never know how long changes are going to last for. But any country that's thinking about their food supply and cleaning up their food supply, and thinking about cleaning up their sort of like healthcare and getting rid of the corruption within their healthcare, that's a really appealing place. And we'd be lying if we didn't say we were tempted. Would it give our kids a better life? I don't know. It's that balance of the community that we have here and the people in our lives that we have here, and then the opportunities and the benefits that would be there for them. So that's not a big announcement. We're not, but it's something we can talk about a little bit, just a little bit.
I think other people have seen it as well. I think when you sit at home and you think, it's just going to shit, isn't it, really? Everything costs so much in this country, and there's a lot of people that will be around thinking, it doesn't matter how hard I work, I'm just going to get taxed more and more and more, and that's going to grind a bit on people. And we're very lucky because we aren't poor, and there's people that are working full-time and are still not getting by, and they're thinking, what is the point? And if I'm thinking, well, actually, look at this country, is it going to get any better anytime soon? And the answer to that, I think, is no, it's not. It absolutely is getting worse. And I said it before on a video, one of our controversial videos, the way they're going to put you in the 15-minute city and the little box is they're going to make it get so hard, and people say, oh, inflation's going to come down. Yeah, it is, and you won't feel it. They'll say it is, and you won't even feel it, because everything else they'll just charge you more for.
It'll be so hard, you'll be glad to get into that 15-minute city. And that's just not for us. One of the things that's happened recently, the development with home education, and the fact that they've started regulating that a little bit more, if that turns into a slippery slope, and if it was to become illegal like it is in some countries in Europe, that's a hard no for us. That's a hard no.
That'll drive us out.
Because they're not going into that school system. Our kids are not going into that school system.
No. So vote with your feet. That's the thing. And So
answer to the question, we have no idea. But that's okay. And I think we've talked about this year. We've said that this year we need to consolidate a bit. When we talked about how much we've done in the last 5 years, it made us realise it's time to just make good on everything we've done so far, really, and enjoy it.
Yeah, tidy up. So there's a big tidy up, I think, this year. We want to bury some of the pipes that I've got laying around on the land still, and try and get the situation with the rabbits under control, so we get some wildflowers and pretty it up, really. Try and enjoy it, because we found out that, you know, we're burnt out, really, aren't we? I definitely feel burnt out, and I remember thinking, you see people on YouTube go, oh, I'm burnt out with all the work that I've done, and you go, oh my god, it's so sappy, everyone's so sappy. And it wasn't until sort of Christmas and you sort of stop and you go, I can't remember the last time I wasn't tired.
You have not stood still for a very, very, very long time, and it's important that we now just try to regroup and enjoy things, and enjoy making videos and sharing what we're doing. We're still going to be doing all the things that we've been doing. We're still going to be growing food. We're still going to be off grid. We're still going to be living here, and just not big, massive projects.
Well, I think someone accused me of being a manic depressive, because when I get on camera, I'm quite moody, maybe, and I think it's just tiredness. And I think unless you've actually been really tired, you don't understand what that feels like. And sometimes it's quite hard to draw a smile at the mundane, and it sounds like a manic depressive. I'm not. I'm just jaded.
You're okay.
I'm okay. I'm absolutely fine. I don't have to go meditate every 5 minutes like some people. You know, when they, you know, I'm having a bad moment, or get out the app, you know, and start going, oh, I just need to do some meditation because of my mental health. I'm absolutely fine. My default is actually angry. So if I seem like a miserable twat, it's because I'm generally angry with what's going on in the world, but at no point am I feeling like I'm going to do something silly.
You're okay.
I'm okay.
I look after him. It's all right.
Yeah.
I keep an eye on you.
Tired.
Okay.
It's called tiredness.
Hello. I wondered if you are still living in a mobile home. If so, do you have plans to build a house? Expensive, I know. Yeah, expensive for sure.
Yeah. So yes, we are still in a mobile home, and we do plan to build at some stage. Quite what, we're not sure. We keep looking and getting other ideas and going, well, what's the price of that, and what's the price of this, and how do we do that? And basically it's money, and some points you just get fed up with looking at the different things, because you go, well, we haven't got the money to do it yet, so what's the point? But I have been looking recently, and you know, when we first started, actually, we wanted to do it in oak, didn't we?
Like the barn.
You know, oak, you know, pest resistant, all that sort of stuff. Oak, meant to last years and years.
Hard wearing.
And we've got woodworm in one of the posts, and it was only over the last sort of 6 months we had this woodworm, and I can't believe how quickly it's gone through some of this post. It's since been treated, but I think if I built a house out of that, and you don't get it in a really dry, warm house, they don't like it, woodworm. Obviously, if you've got sort of straw bow house, and between those bits where it's cool you get woodworm in there, how are you going to get to it? And you've got to perhaps try and treat it all, and maybe retreat it later. So I think it's going to be something. I'm glad we learnt this lesson. Just a treated softwood. You know, if you're going to buy oak, it looks lovely. The interior oak, maybe if you've got oak beams and you can see it, and you've got heat getting to it. But if it's used as a structural thing, I wouldn't bother now, actually, because I've learnt it just gets woodworm, and that's got woodworm.
Even just the potential, even just the risk of everything you went through to build that barn, and then watching it get woodworm has not been enjoyable. And so that's just a lesson learnt. But then you have to be grateful for that lesson, I suppose, and go, well, thank God we didn't build a house out of it, and now we'll do something else. So we're continuously learning, which means that what we're planning to do is continuously shifting.
I did already answer a message. There was a guy that messaged about, he said, is this life possible if you're older, an older, you know, person, that physically able but, you know, older, is it worth doing? It is, if you've got the money behind you to get people to do some of those jobs. And so I basically answered it like that. And also get somewhere warm and dry. The main thing, be comfortable. Don't go in a mobile home, leaky, freezing cold, walking around in the mud, traipsing around like, and I basically said like my family for years, because that'll have a detrimental effect on your health if you're cold. And because we've got a wood burner, and access to free wood, so we're warm. But if you're going to be live in misery, because one of the things people do is they buy as much land as they can and forget the comfort. In fact, I think in the past we had someone message us and say, why did you bother buying a mobile home? I could have just lived in a tent, and I could have just done this and been down there in a tent and lived like this. And go, that's unrealistic for
This
me.
is the long game.
It's a long game.
And living in the tent is not the long game. Not when you want to have a family.
Yeah.
And
I thought, well, that's all right if you're single. If you're single, and but your wife will leave you because she's cold and pissed off being in a tent trying to do the dishes while you're having a shit in a hole. That's not fun. And the other thing is tools. If you're going to go to work, where do you leave your tools? In your tent? That's not very secure, is it? Believe me, just leave them in the tent. Just shut that door and that'll be fine. It won't be. They'll get nicked. And I thought, how naive. What a naive attitude. Well, just move down there, live in a tent, with all the tools that you're going to build with all the materials that you're perhaps going to get. You're never going to leave. You'll just stay there in the tent. You're not going to go out for food. You've got to put infrastructure in, and one of the main things of infrastructure is security. You just need it these days. So I thought that was incredibly naive.
I think actually we didn't get asked this, but if we were asked what one thing we would do differently if we did it again, I think I would have put slightly more infrastructure in place before we came.
Yeah.
And it was difficult because we were worried about things being stolen.
Yeah.
But actually, we had the money, we had money behind us, and we could maybe have put in a little bit more.
Well, we tried, didn't we? We tried the borehole.
That's true.
And that was a nightmare before we got there. So we thought we were going to have water, and then we drew salt. So that didn't work before we got down here. And the other thing was a big generator, to start with. We didn't want to do anything with, if you're not here all the time, things get nicked. And it's trying to secure it and get all those things in place without people stealing stuff. It's a fine balance to try and get things together to when you're going to do it. And the generator, see, we wouldn't have bought that little generator that we got, but I could take it to work with me. I was actually picking it up and bringing it with me to work every day so that no one would steal it, because that's what we were getting a bit of our power from. Just running that a couple of hours a day. And we just had a cool box. For years we lived out of a cool box. We never had a fridge or a freezer. I would grab a frozen milk from my mum and dad's, put it in our cool box, and that would just defrost slowly, keeping the rest of our food cool. And for years we did that, and that was hard work.
When Grace was alive, Grace's the solar power system was switched on for the first time when Grace was about 10 months old, I think. So, and
to just have light without listening to a generator.
So that meant no lights
for years
at night, because we couldn't run the generator for more than an hour or so in the evening. Couldn't afford to. So that meant, when she was waking up, we would be dealing with that sort of in semi-dark, or mostly in darkness, and that was hard. And so maybe if there had been a way to put a little bit more in place before we got there, but. You learn as you go, and that's been the beauty of it. We are totally different people to who we were when we started this. You evolve and you learn, and that's the whole joy of it, isn't it? That's the whole joy of the journey. So and no doubt that will continue.
The last question was, how many watts does your inverter use when idle/0 load? I can't remember actually, so we could take a look. So you're never going to believe this, but I've just come up here to do this video. And I've got problems getting my batteries. Saying 3 offline now. So why are they just all going offline? I think perhaps they're going to sleep mode. Maybe they're going to sleep mode because they're not getting enough power to them. I don't know, but it's not good.